Hi everyone, this is Austin Revel. Welcome to 2FC Tactical or Indoor Range and Store. And we're going to kind of get into some of the state of affairs here in Minnesota again today, just the legal past that we have woven here when it comes to firearm ownership and possession of certain items. Minnesota is a complicated state, no question about that. But with that being said, I do hope you guys take a minute to come down and check us out, what we have to offer. Like I said, we got a range here that shoots up to .338 Lapua Magnum, machine gun rentals, the like. We do cosmic shooting. There's a lot of really cool things that we do here at 2FC. And so please come down and check us out if you have time. Really appreciate to all of you who commented on our videos and took time to watch. That's really awesome, especially this most recent video that we did on the updates in Minnesota. And we're going to kind of keep this rolling. Just for whatever reason, we're a state that not a lot of people think about at times. Now, with that being said, our governor was a vice presidential candidate in 2024, so it did put us a little bit more in the national news than we normally see. But generally speaking, Minnesota isn't top of mind to most people, and that's true when it comes to our laws when it surrounds firearms. Every now and then you'll see excellent channels like Washington Gun Law. Love them. You absolutely should subscribe to them and check them out. Kind of dip in when we do something particularly crazy, in my humble opinion. But for the most part, we kind of fly under the radar. So we'd like to plug that gap maybe a little bit today. So first off, guys, thank our sponsor, the USCCA. Again, they've supported us for a long time, and we really appreciate what they do and how they've been a big supporter of this channel as we've grown it from our From the Vault series to kind of our funny reels that we do just messing around, and then, of course, getting into the news and updates that we have here for you today. And we're going to talk a little bit about HF 5247, which passed in 2024, went into effect in January of 2025. And that's going to be on forced reset triggers, binary triggers, bump stocks, or trigger activators is what they call it in the law. So just quick legal disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer, so this is not legal advice. When it comes to our opinions here at 2FC Tactical, we kind of wear them on our sleeve. Shall not be infringed is pretty clear. And when it comes to self-defense, which is what the Second Amendment is talking about, it's specifically talking about defense from tyranny, so defense from government. Therefore, in our humble opinion, anything government can have, if you can afford it and you're a legal, law-abiding citizen, don't know why you can't have it either. And that's just where we stand. But there are some legal gray areas when it comes to these things in the state of Minnesota. So backing up to 2024, unfortunately, the House and Senate and, of course, Governor here decided to pass an updated security bill, which put in this HF 5247. And that passed a ban on binary triggers, bump stocks, and quote-unquote trigger activators like force reset triggers or FRTs. So what does that mean? It's hard to know actually anymore. So when we talk about the federal side of things, there was a change on bump stocks that went into effect under the first Trump administration all the way back in 2017 after the Las Vegas shooting that banned bump stocks nationwide. It was an ATF ruling. It didn't pass through Congress. It was just a redetermining bump stocks as machine guns. And since machine guns have been banned from the registry, or at least new ones for the general public to own in 1986, therefore you couldn't own them because they didn't exist in 1986. They weren't on the registry, and it was an effective ban on machine guns. Well, the Supreme Court did strike that down last year. They said, no, actually, you can't do that. That is legislating new law, and that has to go through Congress. You can't just have a three-letter agency, in this case the ATF, interpret something in the way that makes something illegal. And this is under the Chevron doctrine, that basically the Chevron doctrine gave great deference to agencies to make determinations which held the weight of law, even though they weren't supposed to. Under the original Chevron doctrine, the idea was it's just a fine, not a criminal act. Well, we know when it comes to gun laws, it's always a criminal act. And the Supreme Court has eliminated Chevron doctrine for saying that actually the deference goes to us, the citizens, not the government. because it's for the people, of the people, by the people, not for the government, of the government, by the government. So the Chevron doctrine, in my opinion, did turn that on its head. So they tossed the whole bump stock case out, said, yeah, actually, you guys can't do this. So bump stocks are legal nationwide, correct? Not necessarily, because the way the Supreme Court did it was under the Administrative Procedures Act, or the APA, saying that the ATF violated the Administrative Procedures Act. They did not rule it on Second Amendment grounds, and this is important, especially when it relates here to Minnesota. The reason why is because the Second Amendment grounds would be a violation of our rights. Therefore, it's a nationwide ruling and supersedes all state or local ordinances, saying that this violated your constitutional rights. Therefore, it doesn't matter who you are, you can't violate the right. By saying that the federal government didn't pass through the proper procedures, they're basically saying, well, maybe this is constitutional, maybe not. We're not actually looking at this. Therefore, your local state and your state and local, I should say, ordinances do take effect. We have passed this law, therefore, it doesn't really matter what the Supreme Court says unless they come out on Second Amendment grounds and overturn it and say this is unconstitutional across the face. But that kind of brings us to Minnesota, because earlier this year, what happened? A state court actually said that the ban on binary triggers is unconstitutional. And this is where the legal murkiness of this law kind of comes into effect. They specifically mentioned binary triggers. They did not mention force reset triggers or bump stocks. So those two are kind of left up in the air. Are they legal? Are they not? Force reset triggers are making all the waves these days. If you go watch Grand Thumb, you see the TX22 ones, you see the MP5 ones. They had a CZ Scorpion one, which it sounds like they're working on another version of that. The AR-15, of course, had a force reset trigger. I believe the AK has one as well. There's a myriad of companies, Rare Breed, Big Daddy Unlimited, and a few others that are out there. And, of course, these have been sued federally as well under the same concept of the American Procedures Act, the American Procedures Act, because the federal government has once again come out and said that, hey, you know what, these force reset triggers are machine guns. That's not how they work. They work the same as any trigger, one bullet per function of the trigger. So when you pull the trigger, it fires a bullet. That simple. We are a Class 3 license here. We have actual machine guns where you can just hold the trigger down and it will go until the ammunition is spent. That is not what force reset triggers do. If you squeeze it hard enough, nothing will happen because it's forcing the trigger to reset. There's a bar in there that forces it forward to make it reset, and then just have a very light trigger pull on the back end. So it feels like you're shooting full auto. You're getting pretty much the same effect without actually doing it. You could call it an internal bump stock if you would like to. It's basically somewhat of the same concept. Taking the recoil of the bolt or the function of the bolt and forcing that trigger back into the fire position as quickly as possible, but lightening up the springs and stuff enough that you don't really have to exert a lot of pressure to make it fire again. That's all it's doing. So when it comes to the state of Minnesota, what does that mean? And that's where this is up in the air. Now, most of these companies are not shipping here, so they're taking it as the law is in effect. Since the judge did not specifically mention these other aspects of the law, it's presumably in effect. Again, I don't agree with this. I would say that the state of Minnesota's stance is, okay, binary triggers, that just means when you pull the trigger, it fires, and release the trigger, it fires. Normal function of the trigger, still one bullet per function of the trigger. It's a much slower rate of fire compared to a forced reset trigger, or FRT. But same concept, helps you fire quicker. That's legal. You can go out and buy them here in Minnesota, and they can't legally enforce it. And there hasn't been any appeals up as of yet to overturn it. And with it coming into an election year next year, it's going to be interesting to see if the Attorney General here, Keith Ellison, does go down that path. Now, when it comes to bump stocks and FRTs, there is a lot more pushback from the state on those things. And again, not my opinion, I just am assuming here that the state of Minnesota says that those bans are still in effect. You cannot own them. The companies that sell them have kind of conceded this just by the fact that they aren't shipping them here. So therefore, yes, you can't have them. Now, there's that piece, and it is criminal. It is a criminal offense. So this is not a ticketable offense. This is not like getting a speeding ticket. There's actual criminal penalties to this if you own them. Is it enforceable? No, it's not. Let's be honest. This is not really enforceable. You would have to have someone turn you in from the exterior of your firearm, like this one. If this had an FRT in it, it does not. But if it did, there's no way from the outside to know that this does. There's no way to know that the TX22 from the outside does. It would have to be in how they're shooting it, and someone would have to report it, right? And supposedly the local authorities would come in, and we've seen in this state that a lot of local sheriffs and stuff are not enforcing these unconstitutional gun laws because they're unconstitutional. I'm not sending my deputies in to go seize property from people. I'm just not going to do it. So, the actual effect of this law is muted at best. But that does restrict you from getting it shipped to your house or something here because they're just gun parts. They're not regulated. Triggers aren't considered the firearm. The firearm would be like the frame or receiver or the actual where the action's held itself, depending on the gun. But as of right now, FRTs are presumably not legal in the state of Minnesota. We will keep you up to date as this case, I assume, is going to move through the courts and move up. I do know the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus is attacking the FRTs and bump stock side of things as well. You absolutely should support them. They're an excellent organization here fighting for your rights. But until next time, we'll have much more to come. Kind of excited to keep you guys updated on what's going on here. And we're going to talk a little bit federally too, because I've gotten asked about a few opinions. And I guess I'm going to share them. So we'll see what you guys think. You may agree with me, you may not, and that's okay. We don't have to agree with one another. I just know that I want our rights preserved, and I'm trying to find the best way to do that. Until next time, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you then.